Okay, and we're just going to solve that for b. So y1 equals negative 6 plus b. We will add that 6, and we get 7 for our b. So that's our y-intercept. Y equals 2x plus 7. Okay, questions? All right. 17 is basically the same question, right? Write the equation of a line that is parallel to y equals 2x minus 4 and passes through 6, negative 9. So try that problem right there. I want you to try that one on your own. The right answers as I walk around. Okay, so you should get y equals 2/3 x minus 13. Okay, look good? You're just, 2/3 is going to be your slope. You're plugging in 9 for your y, 6 for your x. 2/3 times 6 is 4. Subtract that 4, you'll get negative 13 for your y-intercept. We'll put this right over here. Okay, questions? Okay, this is basically it, but they get a little bit tougher. It's a little tougher when they're perpendicular. It also is a little tougher depending on how they give you your original line. So let's look at what we might run into. Okay, so 18, not very bad. Okay, write the equation of a line that is perpendicular to y equals negative 3x plus 2 and has a y-intercept of negative 5. So this is one of those nice ones that gives you the y-intercept, so you're not going to have to solve for it. So when we see perpendicular, we're going to look at this slope right here, but are we going to use that slope? No. What are we going to use instead, Lanaya? Good. And I'm going to put this upside down T, M. That means perpendicular slope. To note to myself that this is the slope I want to use. So this is like negative 3/1. We're flipping it, which makes it 1/3. And since it was negative, we make it positive. So that's our process here. You don't necessarily have to write that step, but we get 1/3. And so, Lanaya, what's the equation going to look like for this one? Perfect. Now, that little step of flipping and changing the sign, most students are probably going to do it correctly on number 18. They might do it right on 19. They usually forget to do it on number 20, right? Because it's easy to forget to do that step. So let's look at 19. write the equation of a line that is, again, perpendicular to 1/2 x minus 1 and passes through negative 3, 1. So we're looking at a problem that, we're looking at a problem here where we're not given the y-intercept, so we're going to have to find that.
So would you have to flip the sign to make it a negative then sign?
Correct. So we're going to flip. So we got 1/2 right now for this slope. So our perpendicular slope is going to be, we're going to flip it, which will be 2/1. And since it was positive, we make it negative. So that's just negative 2, right? So we've got y equals negative 2x plus b. You want to make sure that you are using the perpendicular slope in this equation right here. Sometimes some students will like do 1/2 here and put the plus b and then find a y-intercept before they flip and change the sign on their slope. Slope's always got to be done first, okay? So we plug in our x and our y. So we have 1 equals negative 2 times negative 3 plus b. We get 1 equals 6 plus b. We will subtract that 6. So we get negative 5 for our b. And so our slope was negative 2. Our y-intercept is negative 5. Our answer is going to be y equals negative 2x minus 5. Now keep in mind on these, whenever this shows up on a quiz or a test, in fact, we're having a quiz tomorrow? I think so. Quiz tomorrow. Whenever we have a quiz or a test on this, one strategy that you can use is you can always graph this, right? You won't have the calculator. I'm going to use Desmos just because it shows up nicely on the screen, but you could graph this on your board, right? So if I graph y equals 1/2 x minus 1, there's that line. I've got the point negative 3, 1. There's the point that my line's supposed to go through, and it's supposed to be perpendicular, so it should look like this. So if I type in y equals negative 2x minus 5, there it is. That looks like, it can't guarantee you that you got it right, but this looks right. It passes through this point. It looks perpendicular, so it looks good. If you did something obviously wrong, a lot of times that'll show up whenever you try to graph it, right? So this is, if you graph your two lines, that can help you check to see if you got it right. Okay? All right. Last one. This is the most difficult type of problem that you could possibly get for these types of problems here. We are writing the equation line that is perpendicular to 2x minus 3y equals 9 and passes through negative 8, 4. So, what makes this problem harder than the last problem? This equation right here is not solved for y, therefore we do not know the equation of this line and cannot find the equation of the perpendicular slope, right? So we are going to have to start off by solving this equation for y. So we will subtract 2x from both sides. So negative 3y equals 9 minus 2x. We will divide everything by negative 3. So y is going to equal negative 3 plus 2/3 x. Okay, any questions there? All right, Blakeland, what is the slope of that line? Okay, just the 2/3. We don't include the x. So what would the perpendicular slope be, Blakeland? Okay, Ian, can you help him out? What have you got to do to find that perpendicular slope?
You gotta switch it, so I think it's negative 3 halves x.
Don't include the x, but if I'm just asking for the slope. So negative 3 over 2 is going to be our perpendicular slope. We're going to flip the fraction and change the sign. But now when we start writing our equation, we will have y equals negative 3 halves. So we'll put the x there plus b. Okay. Now, what I see happening really often on these problems is students forget to flip and change the sign because by the time they've done all this work to find the slope, they forget that they need to flip and change the sign before they go to the next step. So be careful. That's one reason I like for you to underline or highlight that perpendicular so you can make sure that you're doing that right. So this gives us our slope. Now we need a y-intercept. Okay. Giancarlo, what are we going to have to do to find that y-intercept? Okay, so 4 equals negative 3 halves. What goes here for our x, Giancarlo? Wonderful. So here, it's like 8 over 1, so that's 24 over 2 if we multiply straight across, which is 12. And then we just need to subtract 12 from both sides. So negative 8 equals b. And so we need a slope of negative 3 halves, a y-intercept of negative 8. So our equation is y equals negative 3 halves x minus 8. Okay, questions? Okay. All right, so our assignment today is going to be this worksheet. So on this worksheet, there's several different types of things it's asking you to do. Some of these are written out for you. The last 4, you are graphing and finding if those are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So go ahead and get started on that. I'll be around to help if you have any questions. This will be your homework if you don't get finished, but we've got a pretty good while here to do this in class. If you do get this finished, then I need to check it for you. And we have a Delta Math we're going to do tomorrow to review some. So you can, if you finish this early and I've checked it and it's right, you can do that Delta Math that we'll do tomorrow.